Well, welcome back. This is the first off the cuff I've done in a while since my recent unintentional hiatus due to mechanical issues, or I guess technological issues. But anyway, regardless, this one's only going to contain two stories. Usually I try to do three or four, but I figured with the spiciness of these two topics, I figured it'd be okay. You guys would be alright with me doing just two. And of course, we'll be going in chronological order this time, starting with everyone's favorite punching bag in the Democratic corner. I mean, she's a lightweight in both the physical sense and the mental one. But of course, she's just the biggest cancerous growth in our beloved Congress, and one could arguably say the government as a whole. Let's be honest here, the government is one big cancerous growth. That's a topic for another time. Anyway, she's pretty prominent, not even because she's holds a vast amount of power or sway with her opinions, simply because, much like the screaming child, she gets the most attention because she's the loudest. Far be it from me to, call a spade a spade, but the idiocy in the words that she says is just fueling the fire of her being like the person that's put out in front most of the times. Like, look what this idiot just said. Which one could argue, no publicity is bad publicity. At least she's getting her name out there. But anyway, I'll be starting with her stupid and out of touch remarks first, then moving on to the topic as a whole in regards to Congress. So, without further stalling, tangents absolved for now, let's get this over with.
This is why there's so much pressure to turn to lobbying firms and to cash in on member service after people leave, because precisely of this issue. So it may be politically convenient, and it may make you look good in the short term for saying, oh, we're not voting for pay increases, but we should be fighting for pay increases for every American worker. We should be fighting for a $15 minimum wage pegged to inflation so that everybody in the United States with a salary, with a wage, gets a cost of living increase. Members of Congress, retail workers, everybody should get cost of living increases to accommodate for the changes in our economy. And then when we don't do that, it only increases the pressure on members to exploit loopholes, like insider trading loopholes, to make it on the back end. So,
do you think there's a tendency? Do you think there's a tendency of members to obviously take it out on this institution because it's an optics issue? They don't want to seem like that.
And that's my issue, is that it's superficial. You can vote against pay increases all you want. It's, in my opinion, voting against it's not even like a raise, it's a cost of living adjustment. So you can vote against a cost of living adjustment all you want, and it'll look good on its surface, but every cost of living adjustment that gets bypassed is voting to increase the pressure to exploit loopholes and legal loopholes to kind of lean on other ways to enrich oneself.
I'm going to be honest and say this video gave me an aneurysm within the first 10 seconds. So kudos to her for that. But I'll get into the whole corruption versus race thing here in a minute. First things first, increasing the minimum wage, further increasing the artificial price of labor and put in place by the state, will make inflation worse. So, if we followed the economic illiterates advice and did in fact peg minimum wage to the inflation, it would create a vicious cycle in which the minimum wage would increase inflation, which would require the minimum wage to be increased yet again, etc., 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 till the end of time. So let me ask this question. How can I, as a contractor with a simple associate's degree in mechanical and architectural engineering, have a better grasp of basic economics than a fucking economics major? I'm not doubting that she has a degree in it, but that just speaks volumes about what a degree even means nowadays. And the simple basic economic concept goes over the head of somebody that's supposed to have a degree in this particular fucking field. And not only does she have a degree in it, but she's also serving in a position of power where she's supposed to be more or less balancing a checkbook. Yet she can't grasp a simple fucking economic mathematical equation. Anyway, I don't know, maybe I'm giving her too much credit. But anyway, moving on to the actual topic on hand, the salary of a member of Congress starts out at $175,000 a year, which is not bad. It's about six figures. And let's be honest here, they don't work year-round. They get plenty of vacation days. And That's a pretty fucking good amount of money to be making. So I don't see what the issue is. Anyway, moving on. The average salary in the U.S., according to the Social Security Administration, is about $50,000 a year. So a newbie member of Congress makes more than $100,000 a year than the average U.S. citizen. Hell, they may make more than triple what the average U.S. citizen makes for a salary per year. So please explain to me how these thieves say that they need and try to justify a raise. I know how they do it, how they justify it. It doesn't make it fucking right. Oh, AOC and other members hide this raise under the guise of quote-unquote increase for a living wage and have the balls to call it modest. $4,500 is modest to you. Is fucking modest. That, I'm going to rant a little bit here. That alone should show you exactly the mindset of these fucking people that are in power. They're completely detached from the average U.S. citizen. They don't give a damn about the fucking peons. They just want to make all their money, get all their fucking benefits, and make a fucking career politician out of themselves, making increasing amounts of money per year for essentially never doing their fucking job. I know I'm ranting, but it's kind of a point of the off-the-cuff videos. These people are making six figures. And yes, I'll give it that they do live in an area that has a high cost of living. I'll give them that. But the thing is, being a politician shouldn't be a career choice. You're serving the people. You're not there to make a fucking fortune. And your cost of living is too high. Do what everyone else has to do. Adjust your lifestyle. Adjust what you buy. Balance your fucking checkbook. But I know expecting Congress to balance their own checkbooks is kind of hilarious considering the way they balance the U.S.'s checkbook. But what with the ever-increasing national debt and all, I can kind of understand the reason why you guys want a wage increase for your living standards. It's because you guys can't bite the fucking bullet and not buy $500 fucking dinners every goddamn day and $4,000 dresses and everything else. You have to live the higher fucking end lifestyle. You don't want to bite the bullet and cut back on the things that you buy. Living in the area that has an increased cost of living, which is partially due to the fucking legislation that you assholes put in place. So you're suffering the consequences of the things that you have done, but you want to make yourselves an exception to the rule by being able to ever further increase your fucking wages. And here's the funny thing. You guys can't even balance the checkbook, which is arguably one of your biggest fucking jobs as being a member of the fucking Congress. You see, us lowlifes, us peons, when we get a job, we actually have to do our job, and if we don't do our job, we get fucking fired. Unless you're a state worker and you have tenure, then you don't get fired regardless of whether or not you fuck it up. That's a topic for another time. The fact of the matter is these fucking people have the balls to be like, we should be making more money, despite the fact that we are horrible at the things that we should be doing. Heck, if I had my way, you guys wouldn't be making $20,000 a year. Hell, the majority of you wouldn't even have a fucking job. But anyway, this is just a glaring example of their greed, and it shines a very particular light on how they view taxpayers as ATMs, from which they can extract money from at will, and don't even trust that snake tongue when they offer to increase the wages of people, because you can bet money on it that this raise would come with a raise in taxes to cover their raises and other raises. I'm sure that other members of politics would get, because God forbid these demagogues actually cut their own spending habits to ease the tax burdens on the people. But alas, I've gone on a tangent long enough. Let's continue. AOC, Alexandria Cortez, for those of you unaware, I refer to her as AOC because, quite frankly, I have a hard time pronouncing her name properly, and it's just for a matter of time, it's simpler. But anyway, she goes on to further justify the raise, piggybacking off the living wage justification, stating more or less, as you've heard in the video, that if they don't get their wage increase, they'll be further tempted to deal in shady dealings. Okay, I have to say this. This is a prime example of sheer stupidity of assuming government will be inherently good. The you'll constantly see from statists. They almost always devolve into some form of evil. State always does. That is because state is made up of man, and man is inherently sequestered to give in to primal instincts such as greed. And any disbelief otherwise shows a lack of knowledge of history and human nature. So, basically, what she said was, oh, if we don't get this pay increase, we're going to become even more corrupt than we already are. At least she's honest and admits that she's fucking corrupt. She probably would never admit that she's doing it. She would just point a finger across the aisle and say it's all the evil right-winger, greedy greedy, corrupt, right-wing Republicans that are NRA members. She would never take lobbying money from a particular interest group to force competition out of the business. No, government agents in the Democratic Party would never do that. Fucking people. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic. And this one is going to take us on a trip to the modern powder keg. For those of you unaware, powder keg is a reference to the Hungarian, Austrian area prior to, I believe it was World War I. But anyway, this powder keg, of course, being the Middle East. Our very own modern version of that, where everybody's got their toes in the sand. We're all waiting for an opportunity to deck someone across the face and start another world war. But that's a topic for the ending of this video. On June 13th, 2 Japanese oil tankers were damaged by detonations by an unknown source. I'm going to say unknown despite the U.S. immediately blaming Iran for the unprovoked attack, citing a video showing Iranian personnel pulling an unexploded Timpet mine from one of the vessels. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. These claims have been denied by the owner of one of the ships and by the president of the company themselves. The president of the company going on to say that the damage was above the waterline and denying the mine theory entirely. Now, the main thing that I gather from this is that this being above the waterline implies that it was not a mine. Now, you see, Timpet mines, I looked into them a little bit. From what I understand, there's something that you attach to the bottom side of a vessel that disables the vessel. It does not necessarily always result in a detonation, but that's how I viewed it. Look into it yourself. But this being above the water level doesn't just kind of denote that it was not, in fact, a mine, seeing as mines are usually inside or underneath the water, and therefore the attack damage would be from underneath the waterline. But anyway, for those of us with some background in history, this seems awfully familiar and similar to the false flags of the past. So I suggest that people keep a closer eye on this as tensions seem to grow and the powder keg gets more and more volatile in the Middle East. And just keep in mind Lithuania and the other ships that sunk that people use for justification to get involved in wars that we should never have had a fucking hand in to begin with. I mean, after all, all you have to do is look at the Gulf of Tonkin. That's an example in of itself. But anyway, the last thing anyone wants to see is yet another world war. That sure seems to be the path that we're heading down, and our own government may very well be placing the groundwork for a justification of boots on the ground. Quotes such as this, from Central Command spokesman Captain Bill Urban in regards to said attack. Quote, however, we will defend our interests, end quote. Seems vague enough to easily be used as a reason to justify boots on the ground in the name of defending our interests, or so they say, also dragging the UN as well, considering the wording. Anyway, that's a little bit of like tinfoil hat theories and it thrown in there, but of course there's going to be no solid evidence for this, whether or not unless something like this does actually end up leading to us getting more directly involved in Iran. Although, considering the amount of bases that we have over there, literally surround the country, and the amount of oil and other such things that are driven through the sea to its south, one could argue it's only a matter of time before things end up with the result of boots on the ground. Nobody wants that. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. People of the right mind don't want that, and it's not going to be justified whether or not it falls under the presidency of a Republican or a Democrat. It's not going to be, well, it's going to be justified by one side or the other, depending on who was in power and who pulled the trigger on the notion. But just keep this particular situation in mind going forward with any future claims of the U.S. that are directed at Iran within days, not even within 24 hours of the attack actually going on. It seems like the United States had already pegged down who exactly they were going to blame for it, whether or not it may be true. It may be, but it sure seems fishy the amount of time that it took. Anyway, that'll do it for this video. So, for those of you out there that are still listening, have a wonderful morning, afternoon. evening and or night, and I will see you cunts in the next one.